You all to the February 12th, 2014 S&A meeting. We'll start with roll call and attendance. John Bowen. Here. Joseph Bryant.
Excuse.
J.D. Charest.
Here.
Sarah Feeney.
Here.
Miles Glover.
Here.
Sharon Jonathan.
Here.
Kate Kennison.
Here.
Robert Lane.
Here.
Robert Mosier.
Here.
Josh Mutart.
Here.
Catherine O'Neill. Todd Schreiber. Oh, no one called Ashley. I'll text her. Dustin Walford.
Yep.
Derek Whittam.
Here.
Connie Williams.
Here.
Myself, Jake Whitman. I am very much present.
Todd.
Should we worry about Ashley?
Text her and ask her to call me.
Yeah.
Do you have her number still or you want it?
Yeah, I'll text Ashley real quick and I have it saved in my phone.
See you. I said, don't sit so far away. I can't see anybody. I saw you fine though. I'm just invisible.
Hold on, guys. Sorry. I actually really forgot about it. Rich isn't here to remind us this week. All right, we'll start with, we'll move on to agenda approval.
You had mentioned one.
Yeah, I'd like to entertain a motion to add Monastash report under old business. Robert?
So moved.
Dustin? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Is there any other additions to the agenda? At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the February 12, 2014 agenda. Dustin?
So moved.
Miles?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Agenda approved. We'll move on to section 4, approval of the minutes from February 5th, 2014. I would like to add, or I'd like to entertain a motion to add under old business annual report Monastash that budget questions were not able to be answered.
So moved.
Is there a second? Robert, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. All right, motion passes. Thanks, guys. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 5th, 2014. Derek,
So moved.
is there a second? Miles?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's approved. All right, we'll move on to section 5, reports. The only thing I'd like to report this week is that the election packets for BOD officers opened today. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask Miles. I encourage you, each of you, to look into it, and if you have any desire to run as a BOD officer, it's a great opportunity, and I think we have a lot of distinguished members on this board, and I think each of you should look into it as students. John, I know you want to run really bad, but it's for students only. Sorry. No, you guys should look into it, though. And if you have any questions, ask myself or Miles. Miles is the election coordinator for the BOD, by the way, so he knows all about that. Other than that, I have nothing to report. Sharon?
I just have 2 quick things. I received notice that the Board of Trustees has gone ahead and approved those items that were over $25,000 that were beyond those items already pre-approved by George Clark and reviewed by the Budget and Finance Committee. So that was the RAD program, and there was a few adjustments to base funding. So I want to make sure people knew that those items are moving forward in case anybody asks. And the other one is Cynthia Mitchell sent an email adjusting her supplemental budget request. She had some adjustments to the budget, and so when we bring that up to vote on, I'll go ahead and bring up the adjusted one so it does look slightly different than what you guys saw last week. And I'd just like to apologize for having to cancel being here last week and causing any confusion with meetings.
All right, thank you, Sharon. Ashley's tried calling a few times. She said it just rings. So it's on and it's plugged in.
Do
So
you want to hit the thing, see if we have dial tone?
No.
Doesn't sound like it.
Is it plugged in on the back? Possibly. It's plugged in right here.
okay.
Actually, you know what?
You want to try it again, John?
I don't hear anything, but.
All right, I'll just let her know that
Will,
we need the minutes.
caller if somebody has a, do you have your EOD?
Oh, there we go.
It's working.
Okay, ask her to try.
All right, so we'll wait for that phone call. So that's it for reports. Move on to section 6, public comment. At this time, is there any comments from the public? Seeing none, move on to section 7, supplemental funding request. At this time, we have no requests. So we'll move on to section 8, voting. Do you have anything to say?
Well, I was just going to say, we did receive some later, but because of how full the agenda was, Julie has them scheduled for next week. So
Okay.
none of the offer.
Okay, thank you for that, Sharon. We'll start with subsection A, request number 1408, National College Media Convention. The Observer is requesting $2,197. And at this time, I'd like to open up the table for discussion. Discussed for 10 minutes.
What was the budget change, right?
Yeah. I think the difference was airline prices
Well, no, SAS funding.
and SAS funding. Okay.
They increased it to 900.
So Robert brought something to my attention in the updated budget request. I don't know if you guys can see it, or she probably has it. But 4 students are coming, and there's 1 faculty. But there's in the budget they're requesting airline money for 5 people. And if I remember correctly, we can't provide funding for faculty. So
Yeah, I thought I remember her saying something about herself being funded.
yeah.
And I thought, well, that can't be right, but
Yeah, she's incorrect in thinking. And she's including
Rob.
So on our agenda, it says they're requesting 2197. But if you look at the updated budget report, it says they are requesting S&A funds requested 2427. But if you were to subtract the $320, so instead of having 5 people times 320, it would be 4 people times 320. So it brings it down to 2107. 2107.
I don't think it was a number of people different, right, Sharon? I think it was the price of the airline miles that was
price
different.
of airlines.
Or the airline ticket, the price was different.
Yeah, in the original packet, they requested $198 for airline tickets, and in this updated packet, they're requesting $320 per ticket. And as I mentioned, there in the original packet, the SAS requested was $500, where in this packet now the SAS requested is $900. So
And SAS gave them $900.
SAS will hear the request tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's pending.
Is there any further discussion?
Sharon, can you go down to the, oh, sorry.
No, I was just shrugging.
John, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Sharon if you could scroll down, but thank you. That, the part with the airline.
That's where the updated one is a little messy compared to. Can you go
Dustin?
I had a question. Where's that plus 75 coming from? I get the 65 times 4, but I don't get the plus 75.
Where?
on the main
Line 2.
program? So is that her fee potentially?
Potentially her fee.
And that's what if I'm asking follow-up. Do these numbers reflect 4 plus 85s or just the 4 students?
I'm thinking they request plus the advisor.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we didn't realize that wasn't supplemental. We will need to, since you all need to take that out, we would need to reduce the observer's contribution for the students, because then the observer would cover my portion.
Okay.
So potentially it'd be rough. Well, not if they're taking out the observer's contribution, it'd be about the same, wouldn't it? They'd be requesting nearly the same amount of money. Maybe a little less.
Less than,
Connie?
I think it'd be the same amount less the one air, wouldn't it? Because the contribution would be equal to per diem. So
Okay.
if they're contributing the per diem and they reduce the per diem, they're gonna reduce their contribution, but we still have to reduce the whole proposal for the airfare for 5. So I'm still thinking that we should reduce it at $320, which is what I'm seeing right here. I don't know which is the most accurate.
That $75 conference registration was for me as well, so we need to, you would reduce expenses by, what, $395, but then you also need to reduce the observer contribution by $395.
I think, Connie, go.
No, I don't think so, because I think the student advisor food is for food contribution, unless their cash contribution is going toward the registration. So I'm not, you've got student cash contribution of 200, student advisor food contribution, which equals the per diem. Okay, so if the per diem includes 5, which it does, and you reduce that on the expense side, you'd reduce the student and advisor contribution by the advisor. So I think that we need to reduce the amount requested from S&A for the $320 airfare and the registration fee.
But you also need to reduce the observer contribution, because
For the per, yes.
observer would need to pay
For the
for
per
me
diem,
instead of you
right.
guys.
This would
So,
increase back to a higher request for S&A.
I mean, doesn't that kind of make it a wash? Or not a wash, but
That's the word I was
Justin?
thinking.
Do you know what your observer fund balance is right now?
you mean just our total of where we stand on?
The observer, I know the observer carried forward a fund balance for sales and items such as that. Do you know what?
I'm not the business manager, so I don't do that. I know that we felt comfortable saying, you know, we can put 600, we did some targeted sales, we really kind of were trying to wrestle up some conferences this year. They're also, the ad sales folks are working towards a conference in the spring as well. But I don't know our fund balance right now.
I think my only worry to the, hold on. Yeah, is that the current budget request we have right now is kind of muddy, for lack of a better word, because there is the advisor information on there. So right now, I'd like to entertain a motion that we request the observer to resubmit a budget request without faculty information.
That's gonna kill it basically, because the airfare will go up even more, and maybe not.
Hold on, there's a motion on the table. Miles,
So moved.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Do you realize this is killing the trip?
We know, ma'am. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to subsection B, request number 1409. Morelia Documentary Film and Video Studies is requesting $2,025. Do you have the PowerPoint presentation that we could pull up? We didn't get to see the PowerPoint firsthand last week, but Sharon actually has it for us this week, so we can go ahead and look at that. I'd like to open up the floor for discussion. We have 10 minutes till about 6:12.
Since this was not available to us next week, would it be out of the question if one of them is available to quickly run through this?
One of them actually is available. He is here if we have questions. So this is actually the same information they went through last week.
Oh, okay.
But if we have additional questions, I can go and recognize the gallery if need be. JD? And
So-
John.
I have a question. I didn't gather much educational, like, gaining from this. Did anybody else? I don't have my notes with me, so I didn't.
I think I did because they are filming video studies majors, and they are going to film and video and study.
Well, my thing is, yeah, but I mean, I film video with my phone, all the time. But what I'm asking, my question is like, are they going there to learn something? That's like actually attend the classes or anything other than just filming.
Do you have an answer for that, sir?
So this is not us just going and filming with our iPhones or little hand cameras. We're going down internationally abroad to go with a group of students. We have already done a bunch of pre-production on how we're going to shoot this. We're going to team up with a bunch of students down there at the university, get lighting kits, get microphones. We're going to work with international translators, international musicians, and other international professionals in our realm doing film down there. And so it'll be a great experience for not only us to learn how to interact in that situation, but we'll also learn a whole bunch of new techniques that we have never been able to use or learn on this campus.
Okay, that answers my question then.
There we go. Thank you, sir. John?
Well, I was impressed with the presentation last week. I was impressed with the response just now. I was also impressed that this organization has sought and received funding from various other sources, so I recommend that we support the group in the full amount requested, $2,025.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? All right, there's a recommendation for a motion.
Oh, no, I was making a motion.
Okay.
I thought we were recommending body. Are we a recommending body?
We are, but you still have to motion to approve the
I'm
recommendation.
motioning for the full amount.
Okay, is there a second? Rob Lane?
Second
Thank you. Yeah, is there any discussion?
Or do you second the recommendation?
All in favor?
I was confused.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 3 abstentions. All right, motion passes. Film and video studies has been approved for the full amount of $2,025. Thank you for coming today. Thank you. We'll move on to subsection C. Request number 1410, Operation Stimulus. College of Business students is requesting $2,708. I'd like to open up the floor for discussion. We'll discuss this for 10 minutes, which leaves us till 6:15. Robert.
Just for clarification, so if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, the group has, I guess, already went, and so they're requesting money to cover this event. The reason why they couldn't get the requesting sooner was because they didn't know who was going. Is it possible, if you knew how many students would be going, to request money in advance for something, even though if you didn't know exactly who those individuals would have been?
Yes.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Rob.
Well, we reimburse them based off their expenses, correct? Like once they come back, that's when they get reimbursed. So, I mean, I understand how they didn't get it in time, but I mean, or they did get it in time, but still, it's kind of on short notice.
Actually, Sharon, do you want to pull up the guidelines? Here we talked about things we discussed this morning. I think you're going to fund it, yes. Actually, I know it's
Pro flowers.
We're going to go ahead and pull up the guidelines so you guys can
There's
go over
no
those.
pay. There's no pay. The department is trying to.
So we're reimbursing those parts.
Yeah. it's the, I was gonna call it it's like ITC or something like that. Yeah, there's like a little acronym like.
So we're reimbursing basically the business department. Or
This supply chain.
No, it's not on this page.
Like
it's not a club or I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Or a departmental group.
Do you have the request right there?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. There it is. Okay. So section 4 of our guidelines, supplemental budget hearings. Section A, submission of supplemental requests. States, unless otherwise approved, supplemental requests must be received no later than 15 academic work days in advance of the requested committee hearing. And in our actual form for application for funds.
It is listed on there.
Okay, so which page?
Yeah, it does.
I've got it. I want to pull it up so this committee can see it. There we go. There we go. All right, so on, 15 days. On the request, as you can all see, the timeline, supplemental request should be received 15 academic work days before the event to allow ample time for the S&A committee to consider and vote on the proposal. However, funds are not released until the request has been reviewed by the Budget and Finance Committee. So, seeing that, I'd like to open up the table for discussion. Derek?
So I have two questions. Is because it says should instead of must, isn't that ambiguous? And two, should not, if it was going to be denied automatically at that because it was received within, not within the right amount of time, shouldn't it not have gotten to us to begin with? My
Go ahead,
question.
Sharon.
So historically, the committee in years past have still heard the request and left it up to the committee to decide if they want to make an exception. Just realize if you make an exception, you kind of set a precedence for this year, or you just need to treat everybody the same on how you make your exceptions. And usually the exceptions, and John, historically you've been here as well. It's usually if the committee, if we were not hearing requests because of our agenda being too full or things going on, or if it was during break time, were typically those exceptions. I'm not going to say they were 100% because there were meetings I may have missed as well, but that's just my recollection.
Connie?
From what I remember, most of them related to emergency situations as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the purpose of the request, 15 days, is planning, requiring that they plan ahead of time and get the appropriate approval before the fact rather than after. So emergencies, we could grant an exception.
Derek?
How are we defining an emergency?
Connie?
An example, one of the clubs, or not a club, it was one of the sponsored programs, I believe, had a breakdown of a piece of necessary equipment that had to be replaced in order for them to be able to operate. And I believe it was the daycare.
Is there any further discussion at this time? John?
Well, I think Sharon's right. Usually when we've made exceptions to these guidelines, and they are guidelines, but usually when we've made exceptions, it was for kind of emergencies or very unforeseen circumstances. So I think there would be it would be reasonable to deny this request on this basis since it's not an emergency situation. On the other hand, I think our ultimate purpose here is to support student success. The students involved in this certainly met the criteria I have in mind when considering student requests for travel. They didn't get the request in time, but I think to me, it would be reasonable to make an exception in this case, given the excellence of the students and their great effort expended. To me, I would support making an exception, voting to approve an amount towards this.
Okay. Is there any further discussion at this time? Like Sharon mentioned, the only thing that I worry about is really opening the door for any organization to come in here and say, well, we traveled last week. Can we put in funding for that? And that's a lot of groups. And then if we don't make, we make one exception now, are we gonna make the exception for all of them? And if not, JD.
So if I understood what you said, the biggest concern is people that would go on a trip and then that next week they've already come back from the trip, then they would ask for funding. Is that what you were? Is that your biggest concern? That's actually. So could we do something where we would say we approve it with the this exception, with like also saying in our minutes that we won't approve like things that happened in the past. So we could remove that. So after the fact. So we'd say we will approve this one, but they did get it in before they gave the request in before they were traveling, if that's what I understand, because they were in Denver when we voted on it. Well, we not voted when we heard the presentation. That's my understanding. So if you see what I'm saying?
I do. So
we would put in the stipulation.
Though for no retroactive funding in the future.
Correct.
Dustin and then Derek.
Shut up. Can we do that? I'm pretty sure we can't do that.
You guys can vote to do that, but to stipulate how you're going to treat everyone else when it's already in your guidelines, you don't know what situations are going to come up. Or, maybe you want to say, we'll fund it at a certain percentage because we recognize that they didn't meet the guidelines, or just trying to give you guys some options to work with as well.
Derek?
I remember a specific case, I think 2 years ago, which obviously isn't this year, where the request was made a month after the trip and it was funded. And I believe Dustin would remember it too, since he was on the committee at that time.
No, are you talking about, was it the sport club?
No, it was the college Republicans who went to the Republican National Convention, and they requested funds long after they actually went, and they received them, if I recall correctly.
I don't.
That sounds vaguely similar.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but if I recall correctly, that was what would happen.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be completely unprecedented.
Is there any further discussion? John?
I guess I'm just not that worried about establishing a precedent in which students are going to go and travel and spend thousands of dollars in hope that they can come and get money from S&A when they come back. The very fact that this group prepared as much as they described last week, went and competed not knowing if they'd be funded. That to me speaks to their commitment to this effort. I just don't think there are going to be that many student groups who will do the same thing and then ask for money. So I'm not particularly concerned about establishing a precedent that many other groups are going to try to call or something.
Okay. Any further discussion at this time? I'd like to recognize the gallery. Kelsey?
So I just kind of want to speak in terms of Student Academic Senate. I serve as chair, and this group came, their senator came in a panic because she was brand new, and traditionally college business hasn't been really involved in student government at all. And this year they have a full board for the first time, and they made a great effort to be involved and learn all the processes. And I've been attending the Dean's Council and really educating them on the process so that they understand that it is a reimbursement basis and they have to request before for all processes. That being said, at our last General Senate meeting, the senator came into in a panic because she thought the Club Senate was funding it and she wasn't told, and she's freaking out. And Sharon and I talked to her, and they made a great deal of effort to get all their information in by Monday to present to our executive board. They decided to go with S&A because they thought they would have a better chance, essentially. So I just wanted to emphasize that the really great involvement they've had this year, the great progress that they've shown in being involved with the student government, and the effort that they put into making this request on time. So I just want to say that.
Thank you, Kelsey. After hearing that they had expected club Senate requests, but they did not come through because we didn't have information last week. I'd like to entertain a motion to fund College of Business students in the full amount of $2,708.
Second.
That's, I
Or I
entertained
would
it.
like a motion?
Okay.
Okay, make a motion.
Is there a second? Dustin? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you, guys.
We do a report back.
Oh,
I think it'd be a good idea to review. Oh, what was that?
there's a question.
Organize the gallery.
We do a quick report back because we were 3 participants in actually going to this competition that you guys just funded. Or do we have to come back next week?
Yeah, you guys have 6.5 minutes.
Okay. Alright, get up. Alright, so Gabriela Martinez is unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it, and she is the senator that has been talking to Kelsey, I believe. And we want to say thank you, Kelsey, for signing up from her. She actually, her mom just had surgery, so she wasn't able to make this meeting. And Randy Rodriguez is the other participant who was unable to make it due to catching up with schoolwork, because I'll be honest, I've been behind my schoolwork for this project. So we are the Operation Stimulus team. My name is Lana Abramudra.
I'm Brian Anderson. Roswell Timon.
Me, Timon, Randy, and actually Gabriella are all of the supply chain management students. Brian is our economics major. So there's a couple of different ones from the College of Education. And we want to thank you though, we are so appreciative that you did fund us back this opportunity. Because I personally got an interview, I know Brian did too.
Yeah.
We did it with what we call it's a 3PL, which is a third-party logistics company called Trespass. They're actually really huge. They're in the top 15,500. I'm hoping to hear back from them in a week. So we did a lot of good networking. I personally learned a lot. I by far advanced my knowledge of logistics and techniques. I learned a lot about cold chain. I will honestly say I will never go to the grocery store and look at fruit the same. Everyone, my roommates have been getting mad at me. So I'm like, do you guys know what goes into this? So I'm personally really grateful. So that's why let's go.
What you said. Yes, we're given a very difficult case competition to do, and had to do with grocery store, like expanding its operations. So we had to figure out all the supply chain, logistics of it. And it was a very difficult case. It was very stressful. But we really took it to the next level. Again, it was an excellent networking opportunity. I got many business cards and I actually made a contact with a mentor at EchoStar. So he said, send me your resume, I'll take care of it for you, recommend it to people. So it was a great opportunity.
As in, like this is what I said, we had a lot of networking opportunities, and also we got an opportunity to check out the other teams and compare like how we stand out there in education wise, as well as when you go yourself into a real world situation.
How'd you guys do in the competition?
We didn't make it to the second round, unfortunately, but it's very competitive. Actually, we go against Ivy League schools. So we have Penn State and Michigan State, and they're actually renowned for their logistics, and Colorado University. But just knowing that we can kind of compete in a different way, and carrying ourselves with networking and stuff, we did an excellent job with networking. A lot of the people present there were excited for us, and I personally was able to do a little bit of networking with BNSF. I don't know if any of you know that. That's actually a huge railroad company. It's like a monopoly. And because of this case, I would never really realize what actually goes into the intermodal transportation, that actually you can literally get from the east to the west coast in 90 hours train versus 126 hours truck, which I know you guys are probably whatever, but for logistics people, it's huge. That's money in the bank for us, and that's something that's kind of cool. And so we did a little bit of advance ourselves in that way, and just talking to the other students, making the different connections, and I was actually able to see the people who did win. And so for next year, we're actually authoring reports for the people who get the opportunity to go next year. We're going to do a huge report saying, keep it this way, giving them a little bit of advice, because it is a very competitive case competition. And so unfortunately we did lose, but we still had a good time and enjoyed learning a lot.
Good. Well, I'm going to echo what Kelsey said, and I think the College of Business has done a great job this year getting involved with different committees and student government. And I want to thank Deepak. You did a great job presenting last week on such short notice. And
Next year, I'll keep them on this.
Yeah. And we're glad to fund you guys. Thank you for reporting back.
Thank you.
All right. Sweet. So we'll move on to Section 9, Old Business. I had Manastash underneath this. I kind of wanted to open up the floor for discussion and kind of get a general feel of how the presentation went last week. I'm just going to speak personally. I was a little disappointed that we couldn't get any budget numbers, and that's the whole reason we had them here. So I'll open up the table for discussion. I'd like to get some feedback from the board on that. I see you all shaking your heads being on feedback. I'm just Connie.
I have to kind of second what Jacob said. I think it's important because they are reporting back to you, and it's a responsibility of the organization to report back, you know, how they're doing compared to budget, what they use the funds for. So I think the person that does present that should be able to answer general questions that are posed. I mean, they're obviously not going to be able to answer all of them, but my perception was, unfortunately, this particular person, although did a good presentation and a wonderful person, wasn't able to answer the majority of questions, not just a few. So.
And I definitely second that he had a great presentation, and I think he was a faculty member, and he doesn't have knowledge of the budget that we were looking for. So I just kind of felt it was almost inadequate. Sarah?
Did we get that information in their annual report when we finally got it?
At a high level, yes.
Yeah. Any further discussion on that? I would almost like, and this might be extreme, but I'd like them to come back and present the budget side of it, since that's what my letter had requested. Personally, as like the chair of this committee, I kind of felt like we kind of got second-handed, you know? Like here's a faculty member, but I'm not going to come and present the budget. I was almost a little frustrated. Because that's what in my letter, I asked for a detailed report of the year-end report. Sharon?
I just have a thought as you guys are just discussing things. So I looked at when they're supposed to come to their formal report back, which is in April of this year. So you do have a second chance to really get them to come into all the details and report back completely.
Miles?
Okay, I just want to make it clear, so I just asked Rob. This is the group that we said, like, these, like, they were the one that came, like, with their funding or their
report back late
like really late.
Yes, correct, sir.
So now, honestly, like, I totally agree with you, Jacob. I'm really, like, taking it kind of to offense that you guys brought your report late, and then you bring, which you did a great presentation, but you also bring a faculty member that was not very educated on the numbers, and so now I'm just like, are you guys wasting our time, or are you guys like, what are you guys doing? I'm really confused now, because you clearly asked them to bring the numbers and actually be able to answer questions, and they can't even do that. So.
Rob?
Should we bring them back? I mean, should we have to ask them again to come back, already having done so?
I think that's up to the committee to decide if you felt like it wasn't an adequate presentation. JD?
I think that since they have they're coming back in April, I think that is going to be something, if we were to send them an email saying, you know, we really appreciate Professor Johnson coming in and giving a great presentation. We would like to have the budget. I remember walking up here in the meeting, and I had English with him a couple quarters back, and I was talking to him. He said, "Yeah, this kind of got tossed on my desk." So he wasn't really.
No.
This has nothing to do with him, and he didn't know really what was going on either. And so I think if we put it in words saying we want at this also review an addition of the numbers of last year, based on the fact we didn't get that at the presentation you guys were required. I think that's completely sufficient, and I don't think, you know.
Okay. Robert?
We didn't until March 1st. So, yes, so budget. And we got 2 more meetings until March 1st.
I agree. Derek?
So I just want to say that I think that that there's probably something to be said for not abusing them more, and probably something to be said for abusing them more. Because, I mean, you can't just let this kind of thing slide, right? But you then again, I mean, at what point does the punishment outweigh the crime?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I guess it's sort of a fine line between, have we punished them enough, or do we still need to punish them more?
Once again, that's up for the committee to decide, so I don't know. You guys seem to feel
It's close.
It is.
I think it's close.
It is. Is there any further discussion? I kind of like JD's idea. They're coming back in April anyways. They did technically come back and do the year-end report, although I felt slightly disrespected that it was just a faculty member kind of tossed on their desk. I mean, he even mentioned like it was, I think he said day up. He didn't even know about the day up. And, you know, they could have rescheduled for the week after or sometime when the actual department chair could have came. It seems like she decided not to, in my opinion. Derek?
Is something we could do to like make a statement that we didn't think that the fact that there was no budget information was sufficient, and we are sort of, I don't know, censuring them, just saying it should have been there. Yes.
Sure.
Just a thought, again, the committee can do whatever they, like they are scheduled to come back in April, and Joey sends a list of, this is information you are expected to cover during the thing, you know, perhaps his letter can be a little bit more firm as we expect full answering of all these questions, including this. Just to let them know that we're definitely wanting the full report.
Robert?
Is that April presentation set in stone?
You wanted that much first.
You're still here spring quarter.
We've scheduled them out for the next 3 years. That doesn't mean that if folks request based off of extenuating circumstances did get moved around such. For instance, the OPR request has been moved because there was an employee that gave his notice. So they're trying to get somebody else up to speed, so it's a full report given instead of something that's not complete. So to say that, is it set in stone and nobody could request a change? Joey and I could certainly look at it and say, yeah, this is an absolute valid reason, like they had a death in the family or something, but pretty much it's set.
My suggestion is, I think that we can, penalize, but I'm not sure the point to that.
Yeah.
I think they submitted the report that we requested. I do agree with Jacob that they really did not take to heart and in due seriousness what the presentation should have been. And I think we make it clear to them that, look, in future, when you come for your April report, please have those that can answer the questions attend. And I think that if we do any more than that, we're getting into a punitive type situation.
I agree. I think it'd be a good idea for Joey to really reinforce almost like
the expectation,
a deeper structure of the budget as well.
Yep.
There.
So I agree with what Sharon and Connie both said, but I'm concerned that maybe we're going to say something like, we expect that you have somebody who is intimately familiar with these numbers so they can answer questions. But I'm concerned that maybe we should be saying, because you did not have a good, somebody who was able to answer the questions of the committee, you need to have somebody who can answer the questions of the committee. So make it clear that you didn't meet expectations, so now you have to.
So something like, due to the lack of sufficient budget report at the face-to-face presentation, we ask you to submit a more detailed report for the, what is the word? April. Quadrant, for the April report. Yeah.
Because we're not asking anything special. It's exactly what you're supposed to do, but we're just concerned that maybe you're not going to do it.
That they might send the same person back.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely good.
So do you guys want to just have Joey put an emphasis on ensuring somebody's there to answer questions and that the report is complete?
And I think that maybe specifying that the financial part. Well, yeah, the financial part, they have to have that. I mean, that's what we're asking for. But I think that it really, you didn't do this last time, so you need to do it now because this is required. So, I mean, I think personally that if you encounter somebody who doesn't seem to understand what you've done, what you've been saying, that you really need to spell it out, as opposed to just saying. So if you could do that, it's like, oh no, that's no problem. It's like, okay, but the reason why I'm telling you this is because you're not doing it. So I think it needs to be kind of
spelled out.
Yeah.
So you relay that information to Joe?
Yes, I'll relay it to Joe.
I agree with that.
All right, any further discussion on that? Cool, thanks. Oh, JD.
I got good reading material out of it. I was gonna send it to that book.
Hey, I had nothing. I had nothing against the presenter and the material they gave. I actually really enjoyed it. I just wish I would have known like other sources of funding were for the program and stuff like that. So stuff that was.
I like the pictures.
I'd like to add one more thing. When I opened the first page of the Manastash thing, the first thing I looked at was misspelled. So I think that's important. I can't remember what the word was. I can't remember what the word was.
We do poetry that's meant to be, artistically misspelled.
Artistically misspelled.
All right. So with that, then we'll move on to section 10, new business. We'll go to subsection A, Learning Commons student fee discussion. I believe that we have some here to present on that. You have the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you. How y'all doing? Good. It's nice to be here when I'm not asking you for money. This is the first time, some of you recognize me because I'm here asking for money. This is the first time I've been in front of you and I haven't had a sales pitch. And what I'm actually wanting to talk to you about tonight is in a very direct way money, but it's not from you. Actually it is, now that I think about it. The Learning Commons has a proposal in front of the student fee committee right now. And I have a handout explaining what we're proposing and why. Pass that around for you. How many of you are familiar with the Learning Commons and how many of you are new this year or don't know who we are and what we do? Okay. Learning Commons, in brief, is your tutoring services. It's the Math Center, it's the Writing Center, it's supplemental instruction. It's those support programs for when you need help with your classes. And the good news is that demand for tutoring is way up. We're seeing more students than we ever have in the past. And I've given you 2011 through this quarter, so that you can see how those numbers have increased. So in fall 2011, we did 1326. That's total one-on-one tutorials with students. This past fall, so last quarter, we did 2814. And we're on pace this winter. We've already done, it was 1434 actually. I had to print this and then I ran one more report before I left my office and they were still going strong. When I left, there were still 20 students in there getting tutoring. So that number is just going to keep increasing. It's going to be way bigger this winter than it was last winter than it was the winter before last. Students are using tutoring. And I don't think there's any argument anywhere that tutoring isn't something that should be part of the university. I think we'll all agree there ought to be tutors for students when they struggle with their classes. That service ought to be here. The problem has been who pays for it? How do you fund a tutoring program? Tutoring programs are expensive because you have to train the tutors, you have to pay the tutors, and you have to continue to coach them to make sure that they can do the job that they need to do. And all of that costs a lot of money. And when I came on, right before I came on, as director of the Writing Center at that time, the floor dropped out from under the Math Center and the Writing Center. The budget system collapsed. And I didn't know that coming in as a new director. I had no idea that the budget was going to fall apart immediately. Both of my predecessors had the common sense to get out when they did. So I was left with a budget that didn't work, and we took a $400,000 cut. So there was no money left for tutoring, and I was left scrambling, and how are we going to pay for this very expensive program? And am I going to be out of a job? What's going on here? And the university came up with, let's look at how much money developmental courses bring in. So those are the classes that are the pre-university level classes in math and writing that students take if they're admitted but they're not quite ready to take their first university level math class or their first university level English class. The state mandated that those classes could no longer be part of the regular tuition that students pay. If we wanted to keep those classes at the university, we had to find another way to fund them. And so we implemented a course fee that was supposed to fund those classes. It was going to pay for the instruction for those classes. And the course fee was set high enough that some of that money could go to support tutoring. What happened though was that with that $400,000 budget cut from state funding, there was nothing left to pay for tutoring other than to dip into the money that developmental students were paying. So to look at developmental course fees and to start to use some of that money to fund tutoring. Currently, 65% of the tutoring that's available on campus is funded through developmental course fees. Only 8 to 12% of the tutoring that's happening on campus happens with developmental students, which means that the other, that roughly 90% of the tutoring that's happening on campus is happening with students who aren't developmental students, and yet developmental students are paying most of the bill to run the program. They're putting in a lot of money to make sure that all of you have access to tutors. And as a director of the program, I think that stinks. It makes me really mad that developmental students are paying course fees for services that they're not using, for services that everybody else on campus can use. It doesn't seem fair to me. And it's also inadequate. That 65% of that developmental student money that's being used for tutoring isn't enough to fund as much tutoring as we're doing. There's more demand for tutoring than there is money coming in. We had a small carry forward from a couple years ago that is almost completely depleted now because we've had to increase the number of tutors. We've been raising the number of tutors, increasing tutors, adding tutors as the demand has increased, but we're almost out of that pool of money. And when it's gone, we're going to have to go back to our original funding for tutors, a budget that was too small to make it work. There'll be less tutoring available so that we can stay in the black with our budget. So what we proposed to the student fee committee, not to you guys, was a $3 across the board fee. Every student at Central pays $3 a quarter, and that money goes directly to the peer tutoring program, which means it creates student jobs. That money pays for the tutors who do the actual work. And so that would bring in around $90,000 a year. That would take the pressure off of the developmental student program. That would mean that we can use that money that we're now spending on tutoring, that is developmental student money. We can use that money to lower the course caps on math classes so that developmental students have smaller math class sizes. Right now, Math 100C is capped at 42. The instructors always let extra people in, which means those classes are usually at around 50 students, which is way too many. So one of the things that we'd like to be able to do is use developmental student money to pay for instruction like it's supposed to be able to do. We also would like to design a specialized tutoring program specifically for developmental students. If that money is going to pay for tutors, it should pay for tutors that they're using and not tutors that everybody else on campus is using. And what I wanted to talk with you tonight is, as students, as student leaders, how do you feel about what I just told you? And how would you react or respond to a $3 fee every quarter that went to support tutors?
Derek?
Well, I am opposed to it. And the reason why is because, essentially the reason why is because I don't know who is consuming the tutoring. So for instance, I'm computer science, and if computer science students aren't consuming tutoring, but math students are consuming all of it, I want the math department to pay for it.
We've had 5 computer science students come in so far this quarter.
I've got a myriad of questions. I'm just going to go with the big one that comes up is, I mentioned instruction, so how exactly, do you have an idea of how you're dispersing this fee amongst the Learning Commons? Will it be used for payroll support for any non-student positions, et cetera, et cetera?
It would only be used to support student positions. Okay. All of the tutors who we hire are peer tutors, so the money would be going directly to student jobs. All of our staff positions, all of our faculty positions are covered through other means of funding. So it's purely student jobs we're talking about here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon, but I believe S&A funds the Learning Commons $42,000 a year. So just for some
Yes.
background knowledge there.
You are correct.
Todd and then JD.
Actually, JD was first. Go ahead.
Oh, JD and then Todd.
Oh, I think this is something that's like great because $3 per quarter is something that can change somebody's like their whole outlook on a subject, and their whole ability to study in the college environment. And for the amount that college going to this university costs, which isn't a lot compared to a lot of other schools, $3 is not a huge jump in a fee. And I think that this is something that would definitely help, and especially in future for even augmenting that program.
Todd and then Robert Murder.
We benefit from tutoring in the music department for our theory program. I assume it's through you guys.
It is. We run supplemental instructions.
And, it really helps our students quite a bit. I think even the math example, it's every student has to take a math class, so it's not a math major necessarily that's having problems with math. Usually the math majors not having problems with the one-on-one.
Not until they hit the 400s. And
Yeah,
we see a lot
yeah.
of them.
Then when they get to it more advanced, but I know I was getting. Oh yeah, your fee, the course fee is what from my vantage point as an administrator. There are certain guidelines that go with course fees, and you can't. If I take a class, if I'm a student in a class and I pay for a fee, that fee is to be used for that class, not for somebody who's not in that class.
Thank you.
So you're actually breaking the rules on student fees. You shouldn't be using those fees to pay for. Those students in the class should be benefiting from that, not everybody else. I think you really have a case for that. I mean, it's
That's
really
what I've been
an illegal
saying.
use of funds right now that you're
Right.
using.
I've been saying that all along.
Yeah, that's totally against policy.
It's a ridiculous misuse of those students'
I
money.
mean, Connie can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's not with the policy.
Actually, all the points made so far, all the points so far that have been made are very, very good. I agree. This is absolutely a necessity, not just for the university, but for retention for the students, to help them be able to get their degrees in a reasonable amount of time, et cetera, not come into SAP issues. So I would wholeheartedly support it. As to what you're saying, there may be justification behind that, Todd, but I'm not certain because it's not under the state tuition umbrella, whether there's a difference or not. But irregardless of whether the law will allow it, I don't think that it would be, it's the correct thing to do, to have the fees for one particular section of students pay for the entirety. So I do agree with it, irregardless of what the RCW is saying. I just have one additional question. Beyond this many students that I've talked to, and I've talked to many, so I think this is a wonderful program. Given that the university is expanding and they have a retention program going on right now, and this plays a big part in retention, is there no possibility, because I think you fall under student affairs, correct? Or
student success.
Student achievement, student success. So is there no possibility that a reinstatement of a portion of the state funding may not occur?
We're told no. And we've definitely asked repeatedly.
I have a question. So what is the course fee that these developmental courses are?
They pay $100 a credit.
And how much of that? So it's about $500 for 5 credits.
Right.
How much of that $500 is actually going to the Learning Commons?
So subtract the 28% admin fee off the top of that.
Okay.
So that would be
about $140.
Right. So we're getting roughly, what is that, 360?
Yeah.
360. And to support instruction, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I don't remember the exact breakdown, but it's, we're spending roughly of what we bring in. We've got $50,000 budgeted for tutoring.
And the state funding that was decreased $400,000 between those years listed here. was that just for Central's institution, or what does this look like at other schools? Like,
Other schools are really wide-ranging in the models that they have to support tutoring. So some schools don't put any money toward it at all. It's a class that students take, and they actually pay tuition to tutor. Some schools, for example, UW, has a fee, like the one that we proposed, that supports their tutoring programs. At Western, they are, I believe, supported partially by S&A, partially state. But it really varies from school to school.
who's first?
Robert.
Okay, Robert.
This is more of a two-part thing. But I mean, the sheet's all good, but is there like a way that we can see like a full budget breakdown?
You bet.
Every dollar coming in, every dollar going out, things something like that?
Yeah, totally glad to send you a full budget if you want to see that.
I think it was it you, JD, correct me if I'm wrong, that mentioned the $3 fee wasn't that much? I think the other thing to keep in mind about that is this is not the only fee that is being proposed at this university. And we are also looking at a tuition increase next year. So I think while I like the idea of this, there are some reservations that I have about other fees because yes, $3 might not be a lot, but if it's $3 plus 10 plus 20 plus whatever plus 6% tuition, then it really starts adding up. So that's what I have for that.
I'd like to entertain a motion to extend discussion for 10 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll discuss till 7 o'clock. Sharon?
Well, this might be something that we may need Connie to contact James Smith, the Attorney General, about, because this sounds like a mandatory student fee. So it requires the student government to be able to approve it based off of the RCWs. And have you gone to?
Yes,
have
we
it put
already
on the
have
student-
support from the Student Academic Senate.
Right.
It's been through them and it's on the fee committee's roster right now. They're looking at it.
Right, but a referendum vote of the student body is different than the academic senate or even the S&A committee. It might be, you might be more successful just asking to have your base funding increased.
Yeah, that was my other question. Why are you not requesting base funding increase?
We did.
No, we know what you were given, but you haven't come back before this committee.
back to S&A.
say,
Yeah,
will
okay.
you increase our base funding? But you have that option.
And we considered doing that, but we felt like the last time there was not a lack of support, but enough of a question in your minds about whether or not S&A fees should be funding tutoring services that we decided that probably wasn't the best route.
It's still a student fee. The other question, I have another question. Oh, who would be the oversight committee of managing this fee?
It would be within the Learning Commons. I guess I'm not understanding your question.
Well, if it's a voluntary or mandatory student fee, typically there's a committee to help with, for instance, the S&A committee, or I think there's an athletic fee committee, and there's a technology fee committee, and so I think we might need an opinion. I don't know if you can do it through the process in which you're doing.
We haven't been told yet that it's illegal. And Dean Slaughter has signed off on it.
Okay, Connie, are you replying to Sharon?
No, I'm going to make a suggestion.
Okay, then we're going to go in the order that I know here, which is, I don't have no idea. But I'm going to go JD, Miles, Derek, Robert, Connie.
Okay, so one question, one thing to say. You mentioned that UW has a fee that supports that. Do you know what that fee costs?
Initially, their fee was $3, but that was a few years ago. I don't know what it is now.
Okay, so that's what they about started at.
Right.
And the next thing is This isn't really a question. It is more. This is discussion, right? I can say. You
can say what you want.
Okay. I want to make sure because I get called for out of order all the time. I think that the fact that Robert made a very good point about the other fees that I was completely unaware of, and if you were given resistance on that, I think something as an individual committee member, I can't speak for any other committee members, I would support thinking about increasing base funding because of the impact that it can have and the fact that it is a service that a lot of students, potentially every student on campus could benefit from. And
good point. Miles?
Well, JD kind of took the words out of my mouth. I totally agree with Robert with all the fees. I'm a student from out of state, so I have fees and loans, and just another fee to add on to that. I feel that kind of can be a burden, and with the tuition increase. So I would, as an individual committee member, would totally support an increase in base funding.
Derek?
Is there no way of apportioning this cost to basically the students who actually consume the tutoring? I mean, not necessarily charging them money, but saying of let's say 10,000 students, 2,000 students are using this, and some departments are consuming most of it, and other departments are consuming none of it. Is there no way of apportioning that?
No practical way of doing it. I suppose theoretically it might be possible to figure out how much tutoring each department uses, but it would vary quarter by quarter, which would mean their bills would be different every quarter, and nobody would be able to budget for it. It would get really messy.
Robert?
Two things. First is a clarification regarding SAS support. What happened was this presentation was given to the Executive Board of SAS, which is a recommending body to General SAS. So General SAS is meeting tomorrow. So technically, as of right now, General SAS is not supporting this until it is heard tomorrow.
Thank you.
And as a member of Executive Board, one of the things I did say, and this is just me, I'm not speaking for any other member of Executive Board, was when I supported discussing this recommendation to SAS, was that they also come to S&A for base funding. So there was that discussion as well.
Connie?
My thought and my suggestion is that they come before us with a budget and a request for increase in base funding. As to what Derek was saying, as far as either the student or the department's paying for use, I think that's a wonderful idea. However, many of the students that need the tutoring the most are not going to be able to. They're students of need for the most part, many of them, not all, but some. I would hate to task them with payment, and the departments are also not going to have the additional funding to be able to pay for it. So I think in the end, our students may still suffer. So I would go the base funding route.
I actually had a question before we jump to JD, Derek, and then Dustin. Is any of this money, how does it work with center students? And are they going to pay the fee? Is there going to be west side support, east side support?
Yeah, it increases, and I can show you the breakdown of where the money's going. It would add money to tutoring here on campus. It would add money for tutoring at the centers, and it would add money for tutoring for online students.
And all the students would pay $3 mates. Okay.
Everybody pays. Okay. Everybody gets access to services.
Okay. Then we're going to go JD, Derek, Dustin.
I just want to comment on having different departments pay. I don't think having the students' actions of going to tutoring have a impact on a specific department's budget, and it would be extremely the students don't have a lot of say in the individual budget. If I'm a music student, I don't say, Dr. Shiver, we're going to spend $250 on this new thing. I don't say that. That's something that the department figures, and I think the students' actions would have a lot of control over how some funds are used in that budget, which I don't think is appropriate.
Derek?
So I know that some departments actually out of their own budgets pay for support for students. I mean, inside their own departments. So those departments already have support for the students. So they're not big consumers of Learning Commons.
It depends on which departments you're referring to.
Right. So apparently some departments can afford to, I mean, they really can't, but they do it anyway.
Right.
And then other departments just want everybody else to pay. Well, they do. I mean, that's the frank thing, is they want other people to pay because they don't want to.
They don't want to or they can't. So for example, the English department, if we think about them,
Yeah.
and the proportion of their students who seek tutoring, that would be a huge hit to their budget. And I'm not sure that they could afford it.
Right. So they want other people to pay.
But the students who take those introduction classes, like English 101 and 102, aren't necessarily going to major in English. They're not students who belong to that department. They're students who are being taught one or two required classes by that department.
Yeah. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion of support for the Learning Commons to come back to the S&A committee with a detailed budget report and request additional base funding. Miles?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, motion passes.
I will be back.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to subsection B, base funding program reviews, and we have, I think I know her pretty well. I think her name's Kelsey Miller or something like that.
I've
So
heard
we're
of
gonna
her.
talk about Student Academic Senate. You have the floor, 10 minutes.
Some new lighting.
Can everyone see that?
I know you can.
I can't.
Hi, like Jacob said, my name is Kelsey Miller, and I currently
job.
chair the Student Academic Senate. My job title is Vice President for Academic Affairs through the student government, so that's why I'm here. I'm just going to go through the questions that you guys asked. I have some additional information and discussion. If you guys have questions at any point, feel free to stop me, or you can do questions afterwards, whatever you're most comfortable with. So Student Academic Senate was formed in 2008, and we started out with, according to budget reports, 29,000 almost in S&A funding, and currently we receive 41,000-ish. About 35,000 of that is, exactly 35,000 is allocated for goods and services, and most of the rest of the 41 pays for the student assistant. So this is a breakdown of last year, so this isn't the 41,000, this was 26,475. As you can see, that's student travel. Can you guys read these, or should I? Okay, so it's student travel, registration fees, promotion expenses, program expenses. Essentially, Student Academic Senate has a funding request process, and all of this is benefiting students directly. That's where the goods and services budget goes. How many students does this area employ? Like I said before, her job title is SAS Administrative Assistant. Currently, her name is Valerie Hensel. So that's one student. Prevailing wage. Last year, I believe they were paid $10 an hour. I raised Valerie's wage because she does exceptional work. And it's on track to stay within that budget, so she gets paid $10.15 an hour, but that is dependent on the person who's in my position, however they choose to use that wage. How does staff decide which program or services? So like I said, we have a funds packet process. They complete a funds request packet, take it to circuit accounting, Sharon or John usually sign off on it. They come to executive board, which is, like Robert said earlier, is a recommending body. It's composed of 5 students that represent the colleges of business, science, arts and humanities, professional studies, and we also have a representative from Douglas Honors College. That executive board recommends, here's the presentation, and then recommends the full amount revised, or if it's late or something's wrong with it, they have to recommend 0, but it still goes before General Senate. At General Senate, there's another presentation, and then the entirety of General Senate votes on that. And General Senate is made up of a representative from every department on campus, as well as Douglas Honors College. So, yeah, we approve things for travel, hotel, registration fees, and guest speakers, sorry. Club Senate does stuff like educational supplies, SAS does not. So, eligibility to request funds. Any student can apply for funding if they're a student at Central. And you can't be denied presentation for a funds packet as long as it's completed properly and is for what our bylaws state that we allocate. So student input is a really big part of Student Academic Senate. We do this in multiple ways. This year I've utilized fall track surveys. For instance, many of you have probably taken the quarter semester and the freshman survey. Those are two that have gone out this year. Those are worked through committees in Student Academic Senate, and also just through my office and through the BOD. Additionally, at our Senate meetings, it's a public meeting, so we have issues, concerns, and announcements for any senator to talk about their department and communicate other things to the other departments. We also have public comment. So far, we haven't used that this year, but it's totally available to any student who wants to come. Committee reports, there's a committee for every executive board member, so those committee reports take the group of students that serve in a committee. We have recruitment, student advocacy, constitution and bylaws, and Robert, help me out. That's recruitment. We have 5 committees. And so we have a committee, general education, which is made up of students who attend faculty senate committee meetings. So, like I said, general senate is composed of students who are from all departments. Executive board is composed of representatives from the colleges. So, this year we've had a great opportunity to collaborate with other offices in the BOD. For instance, Fresh Air, Jacob, and the Vice President for Student Life, Scott Hadsney. We've collaborated with the Fresh Air. There's a committee and staff working on that, and then they're working on another end of it, so that's been really nice. Faculty Senate is another entity that we collaborate with. Like I said, we have student seats on a lot of their committees, with 3 out of their 4 committees, I believe. So that's really nice to have input on those committees, and they come and report back in the meetings. So that's a good collaboration. Additionally, the Office of Legislative Affairs up in the BOD does a lot of business at our meetings. They always come and announce lobby day, legislative stuff that they're seeking student support from, such as the Peterson Hall. Quarter semester was a big collaborative project with many offices in the BOD. Student learning objectives. So this is a big one. SAS is not just a place for students to request money. It also personally helps develop the students who serve in the Senate. Professional development is a really big one. For instance, the executive board senators get to have the opportunity to meet with the dean of their college on monthly, quarterly, whatever works for them. So that really helps in the professional development. They also have the opportunity as general senators in the General Senate to meet with the chair of their department, the faculty senate representative, and really they just have to ask and they can be connected with any resources that are available to them. Budget and finance experience. As a Senate, we approve funds much like you guys do yourself and dig through the budgets and get experience looking at how much money do we have, how much money do we have left, who should it go to based on what qualifications, so they get really good experience with that kind of thing. Public speaking, our meetings are largely discussion based, so all the senators get great opportunities to develop their public speaking skills in front of their peers. Leadership development ties into this as well. Being a senator for your department requires that you connect with students in your department. You're representing the entire students in that department, so they have a really good opportunity to really stand out amongst their peers and connect with people and just generally become better student leaders. Career development and networking. This applies to senators in the Senate, but also applies to a lot of the students. Well, actually, all these things apply to the students that we fund. The conference that you guys just funded, or the trip to Mexico for those students, SAS funds a lot of stuff like that, conferences that benefit students academically. Like English just this year brought a speaker that had 200 students attend. It was amazing. They get to do a bunch of things with career development and networking. So pretty much every student that comes into Student Academic Senate at some point will get one or more of these things. So So the global leadership development, like I said, the trip to Mexico, that kind of stuff happens. I know last year they funded a music student to go to New York, so it's not just what's in America. It's been a long day, I'm sorry. Yeah, so great stuff happening in the Senate. So, like I said, there is a senator from every department on campus. That amounts to 38 right now. There's one student employee that is served up at this office, and last year I went through and counted up the students that we served through funding requests, and that was 643. That was a huge number. Music had a lot to do with that, so that was great. So, cool. So the University's goal of Central Washington University is a dynamic, creative, and inclusive environment that promotes engaged learning and scholarship. Obviously, academics are the center focal point of our organization, so students have a GPA requirement to be involved in the Senate, so that encourages them to be better students and have better scholarship, essentially. Student success, like I've already talked about, this whole environment promotes students helping other students better themselves academically in their careers, for future jobs and current jobs that they have. Access, all senators get access to any resource that the BOD pretty much has. They can schedule meetings in rooms, they can use our space and the office, and essentially have access really to this huge group of knowledge that comes together from every department on campus at our meetings. Engagement, like I said, it's really an engagement, inclusiveness, those kind of tied together. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It's a really welcoming, inclusive, collaborative environment, the whole process. Much like your guys' group here, I'm sure you guys are all from different backgrounds, different points of view, and that's something that's greatly esteemed in Senate meetings. Shared governance, so Student Academic Senate will take an issue and recommend it to the Board of Directors, to the BOD, and that's how they participate in shared governance. Another way is through Faculty Senate, like I mentioned before. They get to sit on Faculty Senate committees to propose curriculum changes. General Education is one of their committees that propose a lot of stuff at the university, so they get involved at that level. And in facilities, do you remember what we're...
I think you guys have been involved in the facility development across campus.
Right.
Learning Commons.
Yeah, so Learning Commons is an example. We also have been supportive of the Peterson Hall campaign, so we're trying to be supportive in that facilities aspect. We had Bill Yarwood from facilities come and present. Last year, I believe he presented, this year presented, so they're just really involved on a campus-wide basis, whether it's academics, going to a conference, or supporting things happening outside of the departments. That's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions?
All right, before I open the table for discussion, I want to thank Kelsey. Great job.
Thanks.
Derek.
Do you happen to know right off the top of your head how much money has been shelled out by SAS?
This year?
Yes.
Yes. So this year we have a budget of $35,000 for goods and services, and we've allocated about $6,000. And it seems like, well, it's not very much for a quarter if it's divided in three, but historically speaking, most of the funds come in the spring. I have binders of funds requests in my office, and there's a separate binder for April and May, so aside from the rest of the year. So we're following a good pattern historically of how we typically get involved in the spring with events, so we're right on track.
Any further discussion at this time? All right, that means you did a good job.
Sweet.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. We appreciate it. SAS, it's awesome to be involved with. All right, we'll move on to section 11, other business. Communication received. I didn't get in there. No, perfect. Move on to section 12, public comment, second call. At this time, public comment. Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Who do I pick this week? I'm gonna go with Dustin. So move. All right, is there a second? With Connie. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned at 7:12.
All of them.
Todd, did you